Sometimes you'll pass data through the query string, like this. Now, in Laravel, we can fetch this data using the request helper function, like this. We call the request function and then provide the key that we're looking for, in this case, name. Okay, so we know that we can return a string. So why don't we return that variable directly from the route? And if I come back, sure enough, I get Jeff. You get the idea. So now let's grab that value and then send it through to our view. Now, simply defining the variable isn't enough. So for example, if I go into our test view and I echo out the name, of course, it's not going to work. And that's because the view has not received that data. All right, let's fix that. We'll come back to our routes file and send it through to the view like so. So as the second argument to the view function, any key within this array will be available in the view. Okay, so now if I come back and refresh, it works. However, if you have any basic experience with PHP, you understand this is a little bit dangerous. We're echoing whatever the user provides unmodified. And as we've all come to learn, when dealing with users, they are guilty until proven innocent. So for example, they could just as easily say, alert, hello there. And sure enough, they've triggered an alert. So instead, let's escape it first. Now again, using traditional PHP, you might call HTML special chars, and then say convert both single and double quotes. Now, if I come back and refresh, we've solved the problem. However, in Laravel, it's a lot easier. I'll surround our variable in two curly braces, and automatically this will compile down and escape the variable. Give it a refresh, and we get the exact same thing. So from now on, whenever referencing variables, I will use Blade, which again is Laravel's templating engine. Now, if you're still curious, of course, PHP doesn't understand this templating syntax. It has to be compiled down first. So when you load this in the browser, Laravel will take care of that for you. You can view these in the storage directory, framework, views, and take a look at these. Let's find the one we want. There it is. So ultimately, this compiled file is what's sent and served from the browser. So we can see here that if I switch back, this right here compiles down to this. And you'll see this little eHelper function. That's provided by Laravel once again, and ultimately it does defer to the HTML special chars function. So now, think about what you've learned. You've learned you can fetch data from the request. Now in this case, we fetched it from the query string, but the same is true for form data, and we'll talk about that later in the series. We fetch it using the request helper function, and then we pass that data to the view as the second argument of this view function. And in fact, if you want, this is pretty simple. We can go ahead and inline this variable, and we end up with this. Next, you learned that within your test view, rather than manually echoing values, instead, you'll almost always use Blade for this. Now, there is two variants here. In this case, we're escaping the name. However, if we instead do curly brace exclamation points, if I come back and run it again, we get that same issue. So the former will escape the data, and the latter will not escape it. And there are situations where you will want this. For example, if you're fetching HTML from the database that you authored, in those situations, you don't want to escape that HTML. You want it rendered and interpreted. All right, you're making great progress. In the next episode, we'll continue on.